Grand Duchy of Lithuania and Rus waged the 100 Years' War against Muscovy in the second half of the 16th, first half of the 17th centuries. Muscovy lost the Livonian War, which began in 1558. The beginning of the 17th century was also not very successful for the Kingdom of Moscow. For some time, the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, thanks to the military genius of Hetman Petro Sahaidachnyi and the valor of the Zaporizhzhian Host, took control of Moscow and put the Polish prince on the local throne. In Muscovy, this time was named the Time of Troubles. Muscovy again attacked Rus lands in 1632 to 1634 and lost once again. But in 1648, Hetman Bogdan Khmelnytsky raised national uprising in all Ukrainian lands, separated from the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, and founded an independent state called the Grand Duchy of Rus. At the time, Muscovy had a chance to finally defeat its centennial opponent, the Commonwealth. As Hetman Bogdan Khmelnytsky was exhausted by a long-term war with a very strong adversary, the hetman was forced to seek allied relations with the Kingdom of Moscow. Under the bilateral agreement between the Ukrainian and Moscow states, the garrisons of the latter could reside only in the hetman's capital, Kiev. However, the Muscovites did not stick to their agreement and quickly deployed their troops in almost all the major cities of eastern, or so-called left bank Ukraine. And being supported by troops, Moscow's commanders began to scheme and seriously influence the policy of the Hetman government. Their influence became especially effective after the death of Hetman Bogdan Khmelnytsky.
We're aware of repressions carried out by the Tsarist authorities in Zaporizhzhian Sich. We're aware of inspiration by Moscow rulers of various actions of genocide targeted at the Ukrainian Cossack elite. Let's remember the so-called Black Rada of 1663, when the Ukrainian Cossack elite, which had a clear state-building program, was destroyed in a massacre by Cossack lower classes instigated by Muscovy.
The history of the left bank hetmanate was imposed by the Russian Empire. In fact, it was the history of left bank separatists of the 17th century, and they had nothing to do with real Ukrainian statehood, which we had to study and which we should focus on. Hetman Bogdan Khmelnytsky died in 1657. And the great Cossack Rada elected his son Yuri as the new ruler. However, as he was still a minor, Khmelnytsky's closest ally and Chancellor Ivan Vyhovsky was ruler of the Cossack state. He was the last man of a great state mind who took the majority of state decisions under Bogdan Khmelnytsky. However, he had a great disadvantage. He was a Pole by birth and was married to the daughter of a famous Rzecz Pospolita magnate. And most importantly, he was bought out of Tatar captivity by Bogdan Khmelnytsky for the price of a horse. Therefore, ordinary Cossacks did not recognize Vyhovsky as their ruler and did not want to see him as the hetman. The opinions of Cossack officers were also divided. Right-bank Cossack leaders actively supported Vyhovsky, but left-bank commanders refused to recognize his powers. And so began the 30-year period of Ukrainian state fragmentation known in history as ruin.
І Vyhovsky, як керманіч, дійсно, упродовж 2 років і примирився з Польщею.
Once Vyhovsky was the ruler, he really did reconcile with Poland for 2 years and defeated a large Moscow army at the Battle of Konotop. But he could not curb opposition to him. This was because Cossack leaders of right-bank regiments came from Ukrainian nobility, and they focused on Poland and the gentry system that existed before.
Вони орієнтувалися на Польщу, на той шляхетський рух, який був.
But left-bank regiments were led by officers who came from ordinary Cossack backgrounds and had no origin from the nobility. or the corresponding elite worldview. Sich Cossacks were particularly tough supporters of democratic rule by people, and of course left-bank Cossacks and Zaporizhzhian Cossacks were often in harsh opposition to Hetman Ivan Vyhovsky. Moreover, he not only reconciled with Rech Pospolita, but also agreed with the Polish-Lithuanian government to make the Grand Duchy of Rus a part of this confederative state. Thus, the new state formation had to be called Rech Pospolita of Three Nations. But Muscovy's intrigues hindered the implementation of this project. Muscovy saw Ivan Bespalii as a left-bank hetman. Using pro-Moscow Cossacks, it began a war against the Ukrainian state. Since then, two hetmans began to rule in Ukraine. The first represented the Ukrainian Rus state center, and the second, who led left-bank Ukraine, was pro-Moscow. The left-bank hetmanate of the 17th century is the current analog of the Luhansk-Donetsk People's Republics. That is, these were purely separatist formations established with the help of Moscow, and that acted jointly with the Moscow army. These separatists, jointly with the Moscow Tsar's troops, forced Vyhovsky to give up his authority as hetman, and new ruler of the Ukrainian state became the weak-willed Yuri Khmelnytsky. Muscovy immediately sent to new elected hetman its representative, Prince Alexei Trubetskoy, who forced Yuri to sign the same agreement as his father Bogdan Khmelnytsky had signed with Moscow. Cossack leaders, in an attempt to save the situation, drafted an allied agreement that is known as the Zherdiv Articles. This document provided for the complete independence of the hetman state. However, Muscovy categorically rejected these conditions and forced Yuri Khmelnytsky to sign a falsified version of the Pereyaslav Articles. Under the agreement, Muscovy appointed its governors in 5 large Ukrainian cities. These governors had large military garrisons with them. In practice, this meant full control of these regions by Muscovy.
На практиці це означало, що Московія повністю контролюватиме ці регіони.
Finally, Yuri Khmelnytsky had no choice but to reach an agreement with Rech Pospolita. In response, Muscovy appointed Colonel Yakim Somko as hetman, and in so doing legalized dual power on the Ukrainian lands. From that time, hetmans had changed almost every year. Rech Pospolita and the Moscow Kingdom skillfully played on internal differences and put their puppets into leadership positions. This lasted until a man of great state mind called Petro Doroshenko received the hetman's mace. He restored the allied agreement concluded by Bogdan Khmelnytsky with the Ottoman Empire. In 1668, the Zaporizhzhian Host, under the mace of Petro Doroshenko, became part of the Ottoman Empire, recognizing the protection of the Ottoman Sultan. Then Petro Doroshenko was awarded the title of Beyler Bey and leader of the Zaporizhzhian Host. The Allied agreement was ratified by Cossacks at the Grand Rada in the city of Korsun. According to this agreement, the Cossack state became completely independent of the influence of Ottomans and Crimean Tatars. The Sultan intervened neither in the internal nor external affairs of the hetman. There were no payments to the Ottoman treasury. Moreover, Tatars had no right to carry out raids on Ukrainian territories. However, the greatest value of the Korsun agreement was in invalidating Khmelnytsky's Pereyaslav Articles. This meant that any interstate relations between the Hetmanate and Moscow Kingdom had lost force. However, left-bank Moscow-led hetman separatists did not think so. They continued to sign new agreements with the Kingdom of Moscow and considered themselves to be the only legitimate powers on Ukrainian territories.
І вважали себе єдиним легітимним центром влади на наших територіях.
So in 1672, newly elected hetman Yakim Somko signed the Konotop Articles with the Moscow Kingdom. According to it, the Cossacks lost the right to elect ruler. Since that time, new hetmans were appointed in Moscow. On the right bank, the decrepit Ottoman Empire tried to defend the rights of the Cossack state and Hetman Petro Doroshenko, but more and more without success. In the end, Doroshenko was removed from power, and right bank Ukraine again returned under the protectorate of the Rech Pospolita. For help in the Battle of Vienna, Polish King Jan Sobieski gave Semen Pali possession of a desert in the right bank after deportation. And then we have 20 years of our history of Ukraine, when Pali founded the Fasti regiment and controlled the northern Black Sea region. And then he helped to restore Cossack statehood in 1702.
За його допомогою була відновлена знову ж козацьку державність у 1702 році.
Samilo Samus ran the state and Pali became his right hand. But Ivan Mazepa, a master of this subtle political game, joined the struggle for revival of Ukrainian statehood. This started as early as 1702, when the hetman of the Polish part of Ukraine, Samilo Samus, decided to unite with Petro Ivanenko, the then hetman of Han's Ottoman-led Ukraine. They held the Great Cossack Rada and elected Samilo Samus as the sole Ukrainian hetman. And when left-bank hetman Ivan Mazepa, invited by Samus, entered right-bank Ukraine, another Cossack Rada was held. In 1704, it appointed Ivan Mazepa hetman of both banks of the Dnipro. It was not a simple declaration in the period of 1704 to 1709. The Ukrainian state clearly appeared as an integral unit in the internal arena and, most importantly, in internal affairs. This provided synchronous development and building of economic ties between left bank and right bank lands. Local administrations firmly consolidated in Ivan Mazepa's office. But this is a topic for the next program. In the meantime, remember, each phenomenon has its pros and cons, its own pro and contra.